it's common knowledge that Hollywood loves happy endings. No fictional characters must finish their film sad, from your Snow Whites to your rom-coms like The Notebook. And this tactic works for them. These films are wildly successful at the box office, at least most of the time, and many of them are able to stand the test of time and have these genre-defining legacies. Despite this, there are those, myself included, who seek out the alternatives. What if the hero doesn't always win? What if the main character doesn't deserve to win? What if they win, but at what cost? What if the couple doesn't end up together? They're not correct for each other, or something happens in their lives that means they can't be together. This realism in cinema, it can't belong in every film. That would be incredibly dour if every film was like that. But an occasional dose of reality can be healthy. And in many cases, I would say it's necessary and it's needed in order to keep cinema real, quote unquote. So when a movie comes along offering this alternative, and then a remake comes along offering the happy or happier in brackets ending, which one is best? Are there positives and negatives to both? Should we view them as having a conversation with one another? Or the remake as a response to the original? What is the purpose of having a remake in the first place when the ending is changed so substantially? Should this not just be a new movie in the first place? In this video, I'm going to look at Christian Taftrup's 2022 Danish film Speak No Evil and James Watkins' 2024 American remake of the same name. The original film follows Danes Björn, Louise and their daughter Agnes as they meet a Dutch film, Patrick, Corinne and their son Abel, and are invited to stay in their seemingly idyllic countryside home. The longer the family are there, however, the more their hosts test their patience. The remake follows Americans Ben, Louise and Agnes opposite their British hosts Paddy, Kira and Ant. Cinematically speaking, the films are very similar. They feature shots that are almost one-to-one and feature as much of the same dialogue and character names. On the other hand, the behaviour of the characters, how they are written and the sets are often drastically different. For example, in the original film, Louise looks to her husband Björn to stand up for himself, to tell Patrick when he is crossing a line, but she never asserts herself in her relationship. It's all passive, it's all looks or glances or, nods of suggestion rather than outright, you have to do this. On the other hand, Björn fails to do it with his new friend. He's never assertive towards Patrick, but he is assertive in his relationship. Louise is a people pleaser, deeply motivated to not upset those around her, particularly those she doesn't know. And Bjorn looks up to Patrick. He desires to be more like him because his life has grown stale. In the remake, however, Louise, played by Mackenzie Davis, is still portrayed as a people pleaser, but much more inconsistently, as sometimes she is the assertive one in her relationship, and come the finale, she is the main hero who digs everyone else out of trouble. She is less worried about pleasing her hosts and is much more assertive, whilst Ben often acquiesces to his wife's wishes. He desires to be like Paddy, but yet is shown as overtly weak and incapable, even in the most dire of circumstances come the climax. What impact do changes such as these have on the product that is delivered to us as the viewer? Which is more disturbing? Which is more impactful? Which will last with you longer? That is the main question of this video. So I want to, sort of clarify. Well, first off, I'll say I am going to spoil the shit out of both movies here, so if you haven't seen either of them and you want to, then I would recommend just clicking off this immediately. I also want to clarify that this isn't designed necessarily to shit on either movie. I think both movies are perfectly fine. I just also think the original is definitely better. And there are certain things that the remake does that sort of annoys me because I see why they've done it, but it's annoying because it pulls its punches in a lot, in a way that takes out the poignancy of the original to me. So, like I said, I think the remake is perfectly fine. It's just in a year's time, I will remember Christian Taftrup's original. In a year's time, I probably won't remember James Winter's version, other than going, oh yeah, that was a pretty fun movie. But I can't imagine I'm gonna still be like, yeah, that movie really fucked me up, because it didn't. It hasn't had that sort of effect on it, on me. Sorry, and it wasn't designed for that. It was designed to be this sort of cringe-inducing psychological thriller for about 90 minutes, maybe 80, 90 minutes, and then the last half an hour, 20 minutes is meant to be a test of, can this family, coupled with Ant, can these four get out of this situation where they've essentially been, held hostage in the countryside. And whilst it's satisfying to see them succeed in getting away, it doesn't really leave me with any strong feelings either way. I didn't really care that they got away. I didn't really care that Kira and Paddy died. I just was like, okay, that was a fun watch. But in the Danish original, I felt incredibly uncomfortable for the entire 90 to 100 minutes, and I spent the entire film wanting it to end because it was so cringe inducing. And then when you finally get to the end, I had such strong feelings on these characters, because I I hated the main protagonists because they were so acquiescent. They were so willing to just be stepped over as people in order to satisfy these people that they wanted to be friends with, that they wanted to be like, in Bjorn's case. That I was sort of like, you know what, you two deserve to die. And if you listen to interviews with Christian Taftrup, the director, he'll talk about, he wants you to hate them. And in my opinion, the reason for that is he wants you to look at yourself, and he wants you to look at the people around you and go, oh, I see that trait in myself. I see that trait in people around me. And I see how in this film of taking that particular unwanted trait in Louise, it's people pleasing. In Bjorn, it's this sense of sort of seeking more from your life. It's looking at another man and thinking, I'm not masculine like him, I want to be more like him. It's seeing those traits and going, okay, well, if I applied that to the nth degree, where could that take me? And in this Danish film, that's a negative. He wants you to realize, sort of, you need to sort of try and get away from this, and you need to be willing to stand up for yourself. If you want to be a masculine man in that sort of prototypical way, then be that. But when it comes to, you encounter another masculine man who's stepping on your toes, you need to step on his toes backwards, or back and forth. Sorry. It's fine being a people pleaser, but when it comes to people pleasing, when they're making you uncomfortable because they're drinking and driving, as Patrick does in the film, you need to be going, well, no, sorry, but I'm gonna get the fuck out of this car because I'm in danger and I would like to go back home and see my kid. And both of these characters don't do that. They don't realize the error in their ways, and their character development is that you see these instances where they're almost there, and then something just pulls them back in, and it's so frustrating that when you get to the end, you go, no, you deserve this. You had opportunities to get away. The only one that you really feel bad for, well, in not just one person but two people, is Abel and Agnes. Abel is murdered, and Agnes takes his place. Her tongue's cut out, and she becomes the new child of Patrick and Corinne. So you know, sort of, I want to mention as well that line that Patrick leaves you with is so haunting because he just says, "I did this because you let me. That's why I'm doing this." He didn't butcher it the way I've just done. He says it a lot better. It's got great delivery. Um, but then you watch this remake, and that line's changed to, "Why are you doing this? Because you let us." And then there's an explanation that from Paddy that they're doing this because these people are privileged, and they don't like their privilege, and that they think they essentially hide away, and they want them to feel uncomfortable. And I don't really think that works for me. It feels very, you spend 80 or 90 minutes with Patrick and Kira making this family uncomfortable, and expressly like, "We want you to feel uncomfortable," and then it just boils down to like, "Oh well, you're privileged and you've got a lot of money," and I sort of was like, I can get what you're going for, but does it really work? I'm not entirely sure. And it also just cheapens the film to me. Um, because in the original, when it's just, well, we're doing this because we can, the antagonists don't matter. They're kind of pointless in a way because they could be anyone that is able to take advantage of someone. It could be someone that steals your, I don't know, steals your car, your parking space. It could be someone that, you know, knows you'll lend them money whenever they ask, even though they say they'll give it back on this day, but they give it back 2 weeks later, but they just do it anyways because you let them. That doesn't matter. That can be anyone. The point you're meant to look at in Taftrup's original is, can I find the traits of the protagonists in myself? In what do I need to improve on? In the remake, you're not the majority of people who are going to watch this in the cinema don't have $200,000 in their bank account like Louise does. They might be a weak man like Ben is. They might be a bit of a people pleaser like Louise is. But you told us that isn't the main reason why they're doing what they're doing. You've told us it's because of their privilege. Whether or not they're people pleasers, whether or not they're weak, is secondary. So I don't really get the point of the film in that sense. I don't really get what you're trying to tell us. Like, you're telling us it's because of that these characters have ended up in this situation because they're people pleasers, or because uh, they're weak men. But then you tell us that Paddy and Kira are doing this because of their privilege. Well, okay, so could this not happen to me because I don't have privilege? Like, I don't know. It's a bit of a tone deaf message to me, and it sort of narrows the focus of who that message can appeal to. Whereas you can be rich and still be a people pleaser. You can be rich and powerful and still be a weak man. It might be unlikely, but you still can be those things. And that's why the original is so much more appealing to me personally. Um, I do also think it's hard for me personally, and it's hard for me personally to see Louise as this people pleaser character that James Winter talks about. Uh, in his remake, he says that Louise is still a people pleaser, but I don't. This is one of my issues as well with the film, is that she's a very inconsistent character. There are times when she is a people pleaser, then there are other times where she's directly assertive. And this isn't like she's somewhat assertive. She is very, very assertive, whether that be in her relationship or whether that be with her hosts. And I feel like that decision has been made because they're appealing to a mainstream audience. They're appealing mainly to a American, Canadian, and British audience. Now, it's fine, of course, to have these strong characters, or these strong female characters, sorry. I don't really have an issue with that. What I have an issue with is it takes away from the original message of that Danish film. And I've read an interview from Deadline with James Winter, and he says that you can't really you have to change some of those traits, some of those how some of these characters are written from the Danish original, because you're appealing and you're applying a British culture or an American culture to this film. And he says that he doesn't think his characters would be so acquiescent when their child is in danger. Now, okay, you're saying that about the ending, but the family still leaves after the family still leaves once they find Kira and Paddy in bed with Agnes, but then they come back and they're just like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll stay. And so they still, in that scenario, then they still people please, they still act weak and unassertive. But then in other scenarios, they act assertive and they do turn into people that are able to kill their attackers. So I just think the characters are quite inconsistent. For me as well, I would personally have less of an issue with this sort of change in their characters if there just wasn't a change in their characters. If this was a different film and it wasn't called Speak No Evil and it didn't have many of the same names, same shots, scenes, dialogue, I'd probably have less of an issue with it. But when you're taking directly from an original film in a different country and then going, okay, well, but if we apply this to the mainstream, it's going to make more money. And how do we make that more money? Well, we do it because we make the man not the head of the family. We make the woman the head of the family, and then we make her the assertive one. Then okay, you can do that, but why don't you just make your own film at that point? I don't know why you have to take this script and then change the characters but keep the dialogue the same, because it doesn't work for what you're trying to make. Just make a different film, in my opinion. And if you want to, in your title screen or in interviews, come out and say this is heavily inspired by Christian Taftrup. He's a Danish actor and director. He made this film Speak No Evil. I really liked it, but I thought if I'm going to apply this to a British culture, I need to change how the characters act. I need to make them more assertive, because I know British people or American people are more assertive. They're not going to allow their kid to get in danger this way. Okay, that's fine. But you need to change more than what you have done here, where you've just taken large portions of the script and then tried to apply it to very different characters. And that's my main annoyance, is that I feel like they've tried to sort of, if you think about the characters in the Danish original almost being painted with a red brush, in this version they're painted with a blue brush, but they're telling you they're the same characters, and they're not. They're different characters, and that's what I find so annoying. I also find What I also find really annoying personally is James McAvoy is brilliant in this film. He's a great actor, but he's always James McAvoy on screen. He's never fully Paddy. I'm never watching the film going, wow, Paddy is terrifying. In the original, I'm going, Jesus fucking Christ, Patrick, this man is insane. I would not want to be left alone in a house with him, because he's so charming. Like, I'm drawn into the film going, wow, he's a really charming character. I believe everything he's saying. In the 2024 film, I'm aware that James McAvoy is on screen, that this is him acting, and that's his greatest strength is also his greatest weakness, which is that he's a very good actor, but you're also always aware that he's acting. And for some, I think that'll probably be a great positive. It probably sounds very pretentious what I'm saying. What, you don't want someone to be a great actor? What the fuck are you talking about? Well, I think there's two ways of being a great actor. There's being a great actor where you're very loud and you're a scene stealer, which is what James McAvoy does here. But in the original, the actor who plays speaking the actor who plays Patrick, I'm not aware of what his name was. I didn't know him before the film, but he's terrifying in a different way. Of this could just be any guy off the street. It could be any guy you know, because he's so charming, and that's how he draws you in. Is just you believe him, and even when you're watching the film, you believe him. So then when the end comes, it is a bit of a surprise. But with James McAvoy, I was always aware that this is James McAvoy. Something is going to happen. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it will eventually. And part of the issue there is also the trailers for this movie give you so much information about what's going to happen. You are aware from the minute you turn one of these trailers on that this is not going to end well. And okay, I get that the title is called Speak No Evil, so you know that this is going to be a psychological thriller movie. Yeah, okay, I get that, but you don't have to tell me so heavily like in the trailer. You can imply it through the character's actions when I'm watching the film. But why, when I watch the film, when I watch the trailer, is James McAvoy already breaking into a room and he's bloody and torn up and stuff like that? I don't need to know that. And I think that's again another issue with this American and British film industry, is that they want to tell you what's going to happen in the trailer before you watch the film. And I went into the Danish original just not knowing what the fuck was going to happen. And fair enough, part of that is also because I didn't see a trailer for that one. But I find the original so much more appealing because I had no idea what was going to happen. I had no idea, even though I had heard that there was a poignant line at the end, I didn't know what it was actually was. And so I would like, with the making of these two films, I feel like, and I said this in my introduction, is this a conversation between these two films? Is this a one-way conversation where you have the original and then the remake is a response to it from a different country? Is this almost two countries having a dialogue about their respective industries or their respective sort of cinematic cultures in their countries? If all of that is true, then this pairing of films should be taken as Hollywood needing to learn from the Danish cinema industry. It won't, because the remake has made a lot of money. It's very popular, and you know, as I've said, it is wildly entertaining. Even Christian Taftrup, the director of the original, has said it is entertaining. It is well acted. It's just not as meaningful. It's not as dangerous because the characters do make it out. You never feel like their lives are hanging in the balance at any moment, to be honest. You always feel like they are going to get out. And so I think it would be a great lesson, in my opinion, for Hollywood to sort of look at this film and go, okay, well, this is very entertaining, but could we make something more meaningful? They're not going to do that, because why would they? Again, this is successful, and even me, who thinks it could have been done better, still enjoyed it. I still paid money to go see it, so why would they change? But you know, as Christian Taftrup has said, you know, you leave his film being traumatized, whereas when people watch the remake in pre-screenings, according to him, people clapped and were whooping at the end of the remake. So why would Hollywood change anything about that? It's successful. It's made them a lot of money. It's already uh, done far better than what its budget was. So it's done his aim, or it's fulfilled Hollywood's aim essentially, which is take this very disturbing Danish movie, rewrite the ending, apply it to American and British culture, and see if we can churn money as a result. Because James McAvoy is a great actor, so it succeeded in that element. I just wonder if there could have been more. Um, but you know, we're not gonna get that movie now, so it's disappointing. But ultimately, both films exist, so I personally would recommend watching the original more than the remake. But the majority of people that watch this are probably going to disagree because the original is far more disturbing. It's going to fuck you up more. It's going to leave you traumatized, and it will leave you thinking about, like, do I know people like this in my real life? Am I that person? I don't know. Um, so yeah, if you listen to all this, thank you. I clearly had a lot of thoughts to say, considering I've gone on for 30 minutes. Um, I feel quite strongly about these films because I do think that there is almost a conversation going on between these two films, and it's a conversation that ultimately I'm on the losing side of, but I feel like my side has much more to say cinematically than the winning side. The side of big profit has ultimately won, but good for them. I've spent 30 minutes complaining. I'm not going to spend much more time complaining. It's ultimately a waste of breath for me, but here I am, so I'm going to continue to do it anyways because I think that the original should have more people standing up for it because even in the reviews I read, there were so many people who I think were probably uh, English speakers first and foremost. Uh, People saying it's just meaningless, it's torture porn. If I'm being honest, I think the remake is more torture porn than the original because in the original the violence is one or two scenes at the very end of the movie and you get nothing else, whereas in the remake the violence is meaningless. It's not teaching you anything, and it's against people who you find abhorrent. So, oh well, that's fine. We can kill the people that we find abhorrent. So I disagree with a lot of what's been said about the original, and I think there needs to be more sort of people sort of standing up for this film. If you watched my video about John Benet Ramsey, thank you because that video is almost to 50 views already. Um, I didn't expect that video to do so well. I probably should have expected it, given that it's a true crime video, and true crime does very well on YouTube. So I'm a bit of a dunce for not expecting that, but it is what it is. I'm still new at doing this. Um, but yeah, 50 views is kind of wild for someone who's literally just starting out. This is like my fifth or sixth video now. Um, so, you know, thank you. That's all I can say.